Okay, great. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jordan Quintel, and I actually come from Toronto, Canada, so I come from whiles away. And thank you. I am the current founder and president of a company called the Genius Web Media. We specialize in WordPress development as well as web accessibility. I'm also an educator and advocate for web accessibility in my local community. So today's topic is WordPress accessibility. Now, it's not only about WordPress accessibility, it's also about web accessibility and accessibility in general. So a lot of good stuff. This particular presentation will basically showcase the fundamentals of web accessibility. So the topic itself is really huge and really large and would take a lot more than 15 minutes to go over. But I'm hoping to give you a crash course on some of the fundamentals so that as developers, you can go home and you can start to pursue more accessible website and WordPress development on your own. So to start, what is web accessibility? Web accessibility means that people with disabilities can use the web. More specifically, web accessibility means that people with disabilities can perceive, understand, navigate, and interact with the web. Also, it means that they can contribute to the web, which is a pretty concise statement. That's from the W3C Web Accessibility Initiative group. Pretty concise. It defines it pretty clearly, and it essentially is a way for people to communicate and interact with websites differently. Why is web accessibility important? Over 1 billion people in the world reportedly have some form of disability, which could be a range of visual, auditory challenges, motor skills, cognitive, intellectual disabilities, the whole spectrum, which web accessibility does cater to and does help them in the long run. Over 56 million people, or 19% of people in the United States alone, are reported to have some form of disability. So it's safe to say that a significant amount of people require some form of accessibility, whether it be in the real world, whether it be in the virtual world, or both. A good percentage of these people with disabilities can rely on the internet or depend on it, can depend on the web to stay networked or stay connected, to stay current, to shop or do e-commerce, or like myself, to conduct business, where we use and utilize the web to build brands and to sell our services, sell our experiences. So this is a little bit about the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, or WCAG 2.0, which essentially governs the fundamentals or the different aspects of what web content accessibility is. Now the important thing to remember in dealing with web accessibility is that it can be broken down into two major components. First component would be actual website scripting accessibility, so making sure your HTML, your CSS, your headings are all properly tagged correctly for proper accessibility in use of with assistive technologies. And then there's content accessibility, so your images, your videos, your time-based media, your animations, your sound clips, all also need to be accessible. So this kind of covers the content guidelines. Development guidelines are a bit more intricate and require a lot more time, but this will kind of give you an idea of the different aspects of WCAG 2.0. So principle one is perceivable, making sure that people can actually understand what type of content it is that they're looking at, whether it be, so let's say somebody with a visual impairment, they would need to know whether they're looking at or I guess not looking, but interacting with an image or a form or something else. They would need to know what that is. Number two, operable. So making sure that they can actually operate the website. Now there are a number of different assistive devices and assistive technologies that can be used to navigate or operate computers. The most common one is keyboard navigation, so making sure that your website can be navigated strictly using a keyboard is actually one of the most easiest tests you can perform on a site for accessibility. So if you unplug your mouse use nothing but the arrows or tab key, you'll get a good idea of how accessible your site is. Third principle is understandable, making sure that the information is actually, that they can understand what it is. So using concise English or whatever language you're using. Readability, making sure that everything is readable for those that have different impairments, whether it be visual or motor skills. And the next principle is robustness, so making sure that your website is robust enough to connect to specific assistive technologies. Also different user agents, so things like browsers have different modules, different extensions that can increase a website's accessibility. So having your website built in a way that can connect or is compatible with those things is definitely a huge advantage to your website's accessibility. Now the real goal around these types of guidelines is pretty much to allow equal opportunity to the access of digital information. So basically that means that people with challenges or people with disabilities should have the same opportunity to access the same digital information as anyone else on the planet, whether it be information, whether it be tutorials or learning material, whether it be commerce, they want to buy something, et cetera, they should have the exact same equal access. Now these particular guidelines essentially, what they do is they kind of force you to communicate and present your information in different ways. And that's really what all web accessibility is about, is communication. So it's essentially taking the same interfaces and the same content and presenting it in different ways so that people with challenges or that people that use assistive technologies can use, operate, and understand the websites. So it's really straightforward. Again, it's all about communication and interaction. So we have some WordPress accessibility tools, stuff that you can add to your WordPress websites. Now this is a quote that I got from the makewordpress.org/accessibility group. WordPress with a high quality theme works right out of the box to help you keep your site accessible. So WordPress as an organization has already understood and deployed different strategies to make WordPress itself accessible on both the back end and the front end. So there's anyone that contributes to WordPress, if they go to the makewordpress.org/accessibility group, they've done a lot of work in ensuring that WordPress as an authoring tool or as a publishing tool is accessible. So not only are the front end websites that people build accessible, but WordPress itself as a tool is also being made accessible for those that want to build websites and that have challenges. So they've made a lot of strides in ensuring that the tool itself is accessible and that with the proper theme and with the proper content accessibility, all of your websites can also be accessible, which is a great thing. Here's a featured WordPress accessibility plugin from Joe Dolson, who's a member of the WordPress accessibility group. Basically what this particular plugin does is it doesn't necessarily change or affect any of the theme coding itself, so it will not make your theme's scripting more accessible, but it will add a bunch of features to accommodate or to counteract that particular issue. So it's going to add a whole bunch of great tools and features so that anyone that's using any type of assistive technology, any type of assistive browsing, or any type of device that kind of helps them navigate computers, this particular plugin will add a whole bunch of features that kind of makes that a little bit more friendly, so that as a developer you don't have to go in and hack a bunch of code. It kind of just dumps in a whole bunch of really useful tools in there, which is a really, really helpful plugin. I would suggest everyone download it, take a look at it, play with it. You can also find a lot of other great tools at the makewordpress.org/accessibility website /useful tools. They have a whole list of great things from plugins that will help you make your website more accessible to evaluation tools such as Web AIM, which is a great tool for evaluating how accessible your site is. Essentially, you plug in your URL and it will give you an actual visual report of the different elements of your site, what elements passed accessibility guidelines, and what aspect failed. So there are a lot of great tools there if you're very interested in making sure that your websites are more accessible. I would definitely check out that link and make sure that, that you take a look at those tools, because it's definitely very important. To conclude, if you care about WordPress and you care about the internet, then contribute to making WordPress a more accessible tools for those with challenges, which means getting on the WordPress accessibility contribution team, finding patches, doing testing, making sure that WordPress as a tool is accessible for all of us. Secondly, if you care about the quality of your work and about people in general, then ensure you develop your WordPress websites with accessibility in mind. So, going back to my original stat, 19% of people in the United States have reported accessibility. So that to me is a significant enough number to make accessibility important. And finally, if you care about your local WordPress communities, then ensure that your meetup or WordCamp events are also accessible. So not only is it important that WordPress as a tool is accessible, but I also feel that WordPress as a community should also be accessible for people like me to come and either speak or engage in different events and get involved in the local community. And that's about it. If anyone has any questions, I'll be at the Happiness Bar, or you can tweet me on my Twitter handle there. And thank you very much.